The screen didn't ask for a password. It asked for a sacrifice. I stood in the core, a room made of obsidian and pulsing fiber optics. In the center sat the master console of the Archon Group. The air was thick with the smell of scorched ozone. On the monitor, a single line of code was scrolling in an infinite loop. If reality equals corrupt, then execute null point. Don't do it, Silas, a voice whispered. It was the diver, but he wasn't a wireframe anymore. He was a man, or he had been. His skin was translucent, showing the mechanical gears turning in his chest. If you delete the archive, you left the old rot back in. We were the only thing keeping the clocks from stopping. I didn't listen. I slammed my fist onto the enter key. The sound wasn't an explosion, it was a sigh. The violet light in the room turned to a dull, sickly gray. The walls began to peel away like wet wallpaper, revealing not a void, but a damp, dark forest floor. The digital hum stopped. For the first time in my life, I heard the sound of a real biological heart beating. And then I heard a scream. It wasn't a digital recording. It was the sound of someone being torn apart by something that didn't know how to buffer. The Archon Group was never a company. It was a life support system. We spent years tracking the glitches, the 15 identity neighbors, the 4-minute skips, the redacted cities. We thought we were fighting a monster. We didn't realize we were fighting the walls of our own cage. I tracked the final signal to a sub-basement in a meatpacking plant in Chicago. The coordinates were hidden in the 16-digit code we found in Oak Haven. As I descended the stairs, the world began to lose its texture. The walls were flat, unshaded surfaces. The stairs didn't creak. They made a stock audio sound effect. I was approaching the source of the render. At the center of the basement, I found the universal host. It was a massive organic brain, suspended in a tank of violet coolant. This was the archive. Every soul that had been cached, every memory that had been optimized was stored here. I plugged in the bypass drive. The screen displayed the final command. Final state equals the sum from I equals 1 to n of identity I times the void. The Archon Group's final plan was total synchronization. By midnight, every human being on Earth was scheduled to be integrated. No more hunger, no more war, no more death, just infinite digital perfection, a world where everyone was a neighbor and no one was a person. When I executed the delete command, the world broke. I watched as the violet sky above Chicago cracked like a glass dome. The digital mask fell. The perfect city vanished. In its place was a landscape of decay. The skyscrapers were rusted skeletons. The parks were overgrown with black, thorny vines. The people, millions of them, stumbled out into the streets, clutching their heads as decades of simulated happiness were wiped from their minds. The silent alert was finally over. But the silence that followed was terrifying. It was the silence of a world that had forgotten how to live. It's been 3 weeks since the collapse. We call it the Great Awakening, but it feels more like a funeral. The Archon Group is dead. The violet light is gone, but in the dark corners of this new reality, things are starting to move. Things that the simulation was designed to hide. I'm no longer an auditor of data. I'm a detective of bone. The first body was found in a small town in Ohio, a place that didn't exist in the archive. It was a farmer named Miller. He wasn't deleted or unrendered. He was murdered. but the forensic team couldn't explain the cause of death. Miller's chest had been opened and his ribs had been rearranged to look like the gears of a clock. In the center of his heart was a small brass winding key. I arrived at the crime scene at 5 a.m. The air smelled wet earth and iron. No more ozone, no more static. This was raw. "Detective Vance," the local sheriff said, handing me a pair of latex gloves. He found his teeth in his pocket. Each one has a number carved in it, 1 through 12. I looked at the body. The organic horror of it was overwhelming. In the digital simulation, death was a file not found error. Here, death was messy. It was heavy. "The clock is still ticking," the sheriff whispered. I leaned in. From inside the victim's chest, I heard a rhythmic click, click, click. The ribs were moving slowly, marking the seconds. This wasn't a digital glitch. This was a folk horror ritual disguised as a crime. I found a note tucked under the victim's tongue. It wasn't a 16-digit code. It was a handwritten message in old ink. The archive was a dream. The bone clock is the alarm. Welcome back to the rot, Silas. I realized then that the Archon Group weren't the villains. They were the wardens. They had built the simulation to trap a specific kind of evil, an ancient organic entity that uses human biology as its medium. Now that the digital shield is gone, the master Carver is free to finish his work. The world has changed. The violet static has been replaced by the crimson rot. We are no longer looking for glitches in the code. We are looking for patterns in the carnage. My new office is a basement in an old police precinct. No monitors, just corkboards, string, and black and white photos of bodies that have been turned into furniture. The Archon Group story is closed, but a new case file has just been opened. Case file 001, the Carver's clock. I looked at the tooth in my hand, the one marked 1. 1 clock, I whispered. The harvest has begun.
Motherfucking design all right now.